We have the material, we kind of have the know-how. So how can we accelerate this now?
How can I be viable, but at the same time more responsible? How can I, rethink packaging? How can I rethink the way I use my resources?
Right now, the global loss of biodiversity is a crisis as pressing as climate change. But what if the way we design our economy is actually the best tool for protecting and regenerating our natural world? Today, we're diving into the essential link between circularity and biodiversity, and I'm very pleased to introduce Marianne Kettunen, Ellen MacArthur Foundation's Biodiversity Lead for Policy, and we'll be joined by Bianca, Brasil, Program Manager at the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity. The three of us are going to discuss how circular business models can deliver on nature goals, what the road to COP17 looks like, and how the business world can shift from being part of the problem to leading the solution. Well, thanks to you both so much for joining me today. I guess we should just get straight on with the serious business of biodiversity. And Marianne, if I may, I'd like to begin with you with the somewhat sobering statistic that 90% of our biodiversity loss is due to the extraction and the way we process our natural resources. And building on the Foundation's recent policy, Scaling Action for Nature, how can circular economy approaches and business models help us to deliver on the biodiversity objectives we currently need?
I'm obviously biased because I'm the biodiversity lead, but I'm really enthused by this topic. To your question, what can circular economy do for biodiversity and for nature? The three words: eliminate, circulate, regenerate, which of course is the slogan for circular economy. But if we look at that then through the lens of biodiversity and nature, firstly, circular economy helps to eliminate pollution and emissions, which all are key threats to biodiversity. So that is one key way that circular economy helps biodiversity target delivery. The example of plastics pollution is a key one here. So circular economy eliminates plastics pollution, and that then helps less plastics, ideally no plastics, to end up in our ecosystems, right?
Yep.
Then circulating. So circular economy aims to keep resources in the economy at the highest value possible. And every mobile phone that gets refurbished and reused, every piece of clothing that gets a pre-loved life, every furniture that keeps on staying in the households is that much less pressure on biodiversity because it's that much less virgin resources being used. So it's really key way for circular economy to support biodiversity. And thirdly, the regeneration, which might be the perhaps sometimes forgotten element of circularity. So a truly circular economy also, where it can, helps to regenerate. So regenerate nature, bring back nutrients into the soil and ecosystems, and also that way help biodiversity, nature to thrive. So those are the ways that the three circular economy slogans work for biodiversity and nature. And of course, then looking at the biodiversity targets, which we now have, we adopted them in 2022, and they now run until 2030. So we're kind of midway of delivering those targets. We looked at those targets in our policy brief. We concluded that circular economy approaches, circular economy business models, they can support the delivery of all those targets, directly or indirectly. There are targets on pollution, targets on sustainable consumption, targets on sustainable land management. Circular economy approaches can support all of that. And finally, first and foremost, and that is why I love that Bianca is here today, is that circular economy approaches and business models, they can help to make biodiversity everybody's business across different sectors. So we call that biodiversity mainstreaming. What it means is that we are able to adopt more biodiversity friendly, more regenerative practices by the help of circular economy.
So it's back to the basics of the circular economy principles: eliminate, circulate, and regenerate. Bianca, you've been working in this space since 2009, quick maths, coming up 17 years, if not already. We are in nearly February. How have you seen the level of business engagement in biodiversity discussions and negotiations perhaps change over those years?
Yes, so 15, 17 years ago, biodiversity loss was hardly ever mentioned in boardrooms. It was all about climate, corporate social responsibility. And then in 2012, our convention, the Convention on Biological Diversity, held the first ever Business and Biodiversity Forum during its COP11, which was a small scale event, around 60 people in the room, lots of interest, but still small scale. And if you fast forward to our last COP, where we had over 3,000 business representatives flocking to Cali to follow the negotiations and join the forum, it's visible and it's palpable to see that not only the business sector, but also the financial sector now have understood the scale and the relevance of biodiversity loss to their businesses and to their portfolios. So there has been tremendous growth in interest in biodiversity from private sector in the past few years. And it's really encouraging. I guess that the Global Biodiversity Framework also reflected that need, the need to engage and to send a strong signal to the businesses and financial sectors about their role in achieving the biodiversity global goals and targets. So the framework has a dedicated target, for example, calling on businesses to assess, monitor, and disclose on their impacts on biodiversity, and to also reduce them over time. So with that, there's been visible interest and work done in the space. So we now have various reporting and disclosure frameworks that are indeed looking into biodiversity and nature closely, offering guidance on how businesses can measure, but also reduce the impacts. But it's a process, right? And we are yet to see the concrete results of it, the reduction of impacts by economic activities. For us to collectively move the needle, really, we need the mission of halting and reversing biodiversity loss. We have to act at a much, much faster pace. So it's great that there's all these materials, guidance, frameworks available, but now we really need businesses to make use of them, to use the information that they receive throughout the reporting exercise and start acting on reducing their impacts on biodiversity.
I was actually going to say to you, what's needed to move the needle forward? But clearly we need to go a lot further and a lot faster. So I was wondering if I can ask both of you, what can the business sector do to elevate circular economy approaches and bring them forward as part of, urgent biodiversity discussions?
Thanks, Lou. Indeed, Bianca, wonderful that you highlighted the urgency. We have the material, we kind of have the know-how. So how can we accelerate this now at the midway towards the 2030? So I'll give it a start and then I'll hand over to you, Bianca. I have one immediate low-hanging fruit in my mind and then two other bit of a longer-term things that businesses could start to work on. So my low-hanging fruit is really to use the disclosure process that Bianca mentioned, that specific target that businesses are now delivering towards, showing their dependencies, risks related to biodiversity, and also the impact on biodiversity. Using that process and bringing it closer to the circular economy approaches and business models that they are also many adopting, making that joint narrative, because currently what I am observing and we are observing is that those two are moving forward in a different parallel tracks. So just simply bring that narrative together. Even if it can't be perhaps quantified, but even in a qualitative manner, it would make a difference because it creates then message towards governments, policies that we can work synergetically with these together. And then the two other ideas which we've been thinking on. Biodiversity framework is now there. Countries, stakeholders are implementing it at the national level. Mm-hmm. And they are doing that in the context of national biodiversity strategies and action plans. And we also looked at those strategies and action plans and the targets at national level in our policy brief. And we concluded that only around 1/4 of them actually recognizes that circular economy can be a delivery mechanism tool to the targets. So there's clearly some potential there that we need to tap into to encourage countries to really see these synergies. And business sector can really help because they can invigorate, they can inspire, they can even push perhaps the national stakeholders to create incentives, create initiatives where circular economy helps to deliver towards biodiversity targets. So that's kind of one thing that really businesses could be a very useful ally working at the national level with the governments towards the governments on that. So create that enabling environment. And my final thought is a global one. So businesses nowadays work with global supply chains, and circular economy has perhaps in the past been perceived a lot more of a global north developed country agenda, which also sometimes have left the developing countries, the global south, to think, well, what is in it for us? And we would really love to change that type of thinking, and maybe businesses working with the global supply chains could be a helpful actor here, because they could showcase how circular business models can help to deliver with business partners from the global south to global north. So that's also something that business partners could be very helpful in supporting the circular economy for business, circular economy for biodiversity.
Bianca, what's your take on this?
I think Marianne managed to cover the essence of it. There is a role for different sectors of society here. Governments, of course, need to understand the challenges that lie ahead and use the tools that are available to build stronger and smarter policies. Circularity can be a powerful tool to support economic development while being smart about the use of natural resources. So it's not reinventing the wheel. The wheel is there. It's just how to make the best use you can of the tools you have at hand. The private sector will have to take a hard look at the business models and understand that circularity can help them reduce the use of raw materials, natural resources, building a more resilient and responsible value chain. Looking also into opportunities to generate revenue for the workers that can help, recycling the materials, reusing the materials, and so forth. And consumers, society at large, will have the opportunity to make better and informed choices about the products and services that they are making for everyday purchases, and to favor those that are less harmful for the planet and for their health. So I think there is a role for everyone in there, and I think we are often trying to look for new solutions, innovation, but circular economy has been around for a long time. It's just a way of countries looking how in their national realities circular economy can help them in which processes and adapt their policies. It's the businesses also looking into how can I be viable but at the same time more responsible? How can I rethink packaging? How can I rethink the way I use my resources? And I think overall, all of us, we all have also this major role into knowing what's good for us, knowing what's good for the planet, making those choices every day. And I think, with time, it will become easier, and the opportunities will be a lot more broader.
Yeah, you made a really good point there. It is so important too, isn't it, that we do look locally to expand globally, and how that can go out and work for everyone. So if we're building up to COP17 biodiversity in October, what would a successful outcome look like for both the circular economy and the biodiversity agendas?
Right. I'll give it the first go. And again, Bianca, look forward to your really insightful ideas here and thoughts. From our perspective on the MacArthur Foundation, a successful look like countries becoming, after COP17, more enthused, more aware about circular economy helping to deliver biodiversity targets. Because as said, at the moment, it seems that there is a important synergy being missed there. So if we can help to do that in partnerships with others, that would be wonderful. And the way, more concretely, we aim and hope to do that is host events, host panels, co-create with partners at COP17 to make this circular economy biodiversity agenda more on the front frame in the biodiversity discussions. So that would be the first step moving forward. As a second step, countries are currently also implementing a lot of bioeconomy strategies or strategies for biomaterial use. And that really sits at the center of how circular economy can help to deliver towards nature targets, because bioeconomy strategies, bio-based resources are the ones that create the key pressure on biodiversity and land use. So if we can then create circular economy approaches and business models that help to make our bioresource use, our bioeconomies of the future, more sustainable and more biodiversity friendly, that will be a wonderful demonstration of how circular economy approaches, business models in practice can deliver biodiversity. So really bringing that as a one food for thought, as something that countries will take more concretely forward in the future through the discussions that will be held at COP17 would be absolutely fantastic as what would success look like. But Bianca, what do you think?
Well, I think if we understand the role of COPs are where all these 196 countries come together and they look at what's been accomplished, they look at the challenges ahead, and they either decide on a different path or they adjust the current trajectory and so forth. And I think in that sense, COP17 will have a critical importance in our process. At COP17, we will have the midterm review of how countries are doing versus the 4 goals and 23 targets of the Global Biodiversity Framework. It will be, I think, a moment of understanding, and hopefully it will be the moment where we ignite the urgency we need to address the biodiversity loss challenge at scale. So I think countries will have a reckoning in a way of how they're doing. So maybe some countries are doing really well in some of the targets and maybe not so much in others. And then it will be a moment where they can reflect on that and they can chart the path to accelerating action, to really coming together as a community, as a global community, to deliver on those. So in the current geopolitical reality, with all the tensions and conflicts around us, it will be important also that COP17 can send a positive message to the global community, that the countries recognize biodiversity loss as a threat, and that they are willing to come together to identify the solutions, share the knowledge, and support collective action. I think having these tools represented, showcased there, demonstrating success stories in one part of the world that can be replicable and scalable in others, can be useful and have a lot of credit to that. I think that's why we actually promote these events. We have a Business and Biodiversity Forum, we have a Finance Day, we have several opportunities where negotiators, the private sector, the organizations that develop the tools that we need, they come together and they share the knowledge. And I think there's a lot of beauty when all of these players come together to understand about the challenges that they are faced, but also to share the solutions that they have developed and to share the results, the positive results, so we can all move forward together.
So you're both basically going in to generate dialogue that accelerates action and implements solutions. I think this has been such a positive talk, and I'm really looking forward to welcome you both back after COP17 to tell us exactly how it went. Thanks so much for joining me today. So it's clear from our conversation that to really take momentum forward, we need to identify what a regenerative circular business case looks like and what kind of policy frameworks and incentives are required to fund that change. A huge thank you to Bianca and Marianne for joining us and helping us map out the road to COP17. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a like or a comment and share with your friends and colleagues. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you very soon.